Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I don't think I really deserve to be on the dais and be with such a galaxy of extremely eminent people. But nevertheless, I'll convey a very critical and a very important message. What does RTI mean for areas which has been in a chronic state of conflict? I can only share my experience in Manipur, and I'm sure this is something that can be expanded elsewhere. We have heard about RTI, we have heard about MKS's movement in Rajasthan through whatever little that trickles in the newspapers. But when RTI actually came into being and when it started operationalizing, I think in many ways it changed the whole narrative of people's struggle in many of these areas. In areas where there are very old, festering, unresolved political questions, usually people's movements are very deeply polarized on different sides. In a way, what RTI and Civic create is a civil society space where the narratives from these big political questions can be narrowed down into real needs of the people at a very basic level. When RTI activism actually started in contexts like Manipur, where issues on territories, on autonomy, on self-determinations, the big political questions are still very alive, was in a very interesting new chemistry that was added by RTI activists. When we start talking about NREGS, when we start talking about Indira Awas Yojana, about the poor, very often in conflict areas where accountability structures have been corroded for a very long time, somehow these issues are lost. And in talking about big political questions, the basic needs and requirements and how people are actually getting their entitlement was lost on the process. And in areas where state is also taking a side in fighting a political battle, the first casualty is transparency and accountability. The accountability of power was lost for a long time. So when we have laws like the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, when the most fundamental right to life of citizen can be exterminated and there is no accountability structure, unfortunately the whole notion about accountability in governance crumbles to such an extent that it is almost corruption, and an opaque form of governance has become the order of the day. And in those circumstances, when RTI activists starts going and talking about their NREGS entitlement, their basic entitlements in terms of PDS, their basic entitlements in terms of building a small little house for the most poor person in the community, it was a game changer. And in fact, on both sides of the polarity, RTI activists are looked with a lot of suspicion. From the underground movement who are fighting for autonomy and self-determination, they thought they are trying to, these RTI activists are initially trying to somehow legitimize government schemes and policies. So they were not in favor of it. And similarly, local governance, people in the local authority who have been siphoning off all these funds for a very long time also looked at RTI activists as something that is threatening the status quo, which has come to existence for so many decades of vested interests built one on top of the other. So RTI activists find themselves in a very peculiar situation in that kind of a context. But what is interesting is that the power of truth is so powerful, the power of what is so basic entitlement is so powerful that it is difficult for any of these people in authority on either side of the polarity, it is so difficult for them to deny what people are asking, the most basic things, because at the end of the day, all political movements or any kind of movement steer up people's sentiment using and speaking on behalf of the people. And so when we put forward people's needs and aspirations and the most fundamental entitlement on the table, it is difficult to be denied by anybody. So therefore, this RTI activism creates a very unique civil society space and a kind of a common ground on which nobody can afford to ignore. And so, despite of the great difficulties when the most basic and fundamental rights of ordinary people are being put forward, it's extremely difficult to deny. However, the challenge are much, much higher in these areas. And if one speaks about the Manipur case, a system of governance which is used to governing the people with brutal force, with force of military power, with complete opaqueness in governance, find any institution that try to establish accountability extremely irritating and extremely uncomfortable. And so when Right to Information first came, we had a fairly active Right to Information Commission which was functioning, but it has been few years now that the government have not appointed our Chief Information Commissioner on some technical ground or the other. Same is the case with Human Rights Commission or even Consumers Forum. Governments which are used to highly militaristic and highly opaque form of governance find any of these institutions very uncomfortable. And so there is always one reason or the other to sabotage these institutions. And so our Right to Information Commission has not been functioning. Also, they have come out with a very long list of government departments which are exempted from the Right to Information purview of the Right to Information, including the Home Department. So my colleague here, who's in the middle of us, Joy Kumar, who is sitting in the right at the end, had filed a complaint demanding that all the inquiry commissions set up by the government to look into killings of people which were actually set up in the public interest should be disclosed to the people. And the matter went from the Home Department to the Information Commission to the High Court, and now the matter is pending in the Supreme Court. So there is a lot of dilemmas of governments which are used to a certain form of governance in the name of national security to open up, not realizing the fact that it is when people feel comfortable and people feel secure that their rights and entitlements are safeguarded by the government that the real security of the nation can come about. And we are extremely grateful that with a lot of efforts, in fact, Mr. GM Lindo himself is going to come to Manipur and look up and open up some of these issues with Santosh Hegre Justice Santosh Hegre and Ajay Kumar in Manipur very soon, as the Supreme Court of India have now constituted a high-level commission to look into these matters of complete lack of accountability when people are being killed. It's not just about whether we are getting our entitlements, but when human lives are being eliminated arbitrarily, there are no accountability structures to establish the truth and therefore to get into the issues of justice. Now we are going to have this commission in March, and we hope that some achievements will be made out of this commission and the initiative that the Supreme Court have taken. My only appeal to the whole Right to Information movement is that the whole accountability movement and transparency movement should not stop only in the mainland India. It needs to go to the margins of this country where it is most needed, and therefore because the only way to build a stronger nation is to have accountability of the governments, and that's the only way. It's not through the barrel of a gun or by sending military into these areas that we will be able to, you might be able to build a strong state, but you will never be able to build a strong nation unless and until people can feel the warmth of democracy, the warmth of enjoying those rights and entitlement. And I do appeal to this community that we need to take this movement to different nooks and corners of this country, including Northeast. I'm really glad that in Shillong Declaration there were specific mentions of specific gaps that are found in many of the communities in the Northeast, but we should try and push this. And if there is anything that civil society in these parts, particularly in Manipur and Northeast, can play in this, we have our hands widely open, and let's try to build a stronger nation by ensuring that nobody is missed out in this country, that every citizen of this country are treated with equality, and what is basic and entitlements for each of them is received with dignity and honor. Thank you very much.